Space was quiet, beautiful, peaceful. Humanity had worked hard to reach the stars. After centuries of war and struggle on Earth, humans had finally learned to live in peace. They built ships, found new planets, and shared technology. Many alien species respected them. Some even became friends. One of the most beautiful human colonies was Eden 3. It was a green planet, full of forests, rivers, and blue skies. Families lived there. Children played in the fields. Scientists, farmers, and builders all worked together. It was a symbol of hope, but peace does not last forever. Far away, deep in unknown space, a powerful alien alliance called the Zorvak Accord watched humanity closely. The Zorvak were old. They believed the stars belonged to them. They didn't want humans to explore certain areas, ancient parts of the galaxy they called sacred. Humanity didn't know about those boundaries. They kept expanding, building new colonies closer and closer to Zorvak space. No warning came, until one day, it did, and it was already too late. The attack came without sound. One moment, Eden 3 was full of life. The next moment, the sky turned black. Giant alien ships appeared in orbit. Their weapons were silent, but deadly. They released energy waves that shut down all human technology. The defense systems failed. Communications went dark. Then came the fire. Plasma bombs fell like rain. Buildings exploded. Forests burned. The oceans boiled. People screamed. Parents held their children, trying to protect them. Some ran to escape pods. Others hid underground. But nothing worked. The Zorvak destroyed everything. In just 12 minutes, Eden 3 was gone. Only one thing survived: a message. A small satellite near the planet had recorded everything. It picked up the Zorvak broadcast sent to Earth. The voice was cold and emotionless. This is a warning. Humanity is expanding too far. Eden 3 was in sacred territory. You were told, this is mercy. Step back or be erased. That message reached Earth the next day. People watched in horror. Images of burning cities, broken families, and lifeless land played across every screen. News anchors cried. World leaders stood in silence. For the first time in years, Earth felt helpless. The death toll was too high, over 9 million lives lost. Most of them were civilians, children, teachers, doctors, mothers. The world stopped. For 3 days, there was silence. No government spoke. No military moved. It felt like the whole planet was holding its breath. But deep inside command centers, something had already started. Humanity's leaders gathered in secret. The president of the Earth Alliance, military generals, top scientists, all met underground in a place known only as Black Core. There they watched the message again, and again, and again. Each time their faces grew harder. The president finally stood and said, "We are not at war, not yet, but we are not stepping back." She turned to the generals. "They destroyed Eden 3. They think we are weak, but they will learn. Humans do not run. We remember, we build, and when we strike, we do not miss." Across the planet, change began. Factories started working day and night. Engineers unlocked secret blueprints, stealth ships, energy weapons, AI-guided drones. Scientists searched for the enemy's weaknesses. Hackers broke into alien networks. Soldiers were trained in silence, not for war, but for something worse. This was not about taking revenge quickly. No. This was about vengeance. Slow, careful, complete. The world never forgot Eden 3. A monument was built in the center of New London. A sculpture of a mother holding her child, both turning into ash. Beneath it, the words, "They thought we would break, but we became unbreakable." The Zorvak Accord believed the warning was enough. They thought humans would stop expanding. that they would retreat in fear. But the Zorvak made one big mistake. They believed peace made humans weak. But peace only gave humanity time to grow strong. Now, the time for peace was over, and the galaxy would soon learn. What comes after peace is vengeance. The stars looked the same, but something had changed. After the fall of Eden 3, Earth was silent on the outside, but inside it was preparing. People thought humanity would beg for peace. They were wrong. Humanity was not planning to forgive. They were planning something far worse. They called it Project Vengeance. The project was hidden deep under the Arctic Circle, inside a secret base known as Black Core. It didn't appear on any map. Even most government leaders didn't know it existed. Inside, the best minds of Earth were gathered. Military commanders, scientists, engineers, hackers, spies. They worked without sleep, driven by anger, loss, and one clear goal: make the Zorvak suffer. Leading the operation was Commander Reyna Voss. She had lost her daughter on Eden 3. Her voice never shook, her eyes never blinked. She was calm, cold, and focused. People whispered that she hadn't cried once. She didn't have time for tears. She had work to do. Voss stood in the center of the command room, pointing at a large hologram of the galaxy. Glowing red dots showed Zorvak bases. Yellow lines marked supply routes. She looked at her team and said, "They think we're scared. Let's make them regret that." The mission was not to start a war. A war would cost more lives. It would take too long. Humanity wanted something faster, smarter, something the Zorvak wouldn't see coming. So Project Vengeance created something new: ghost fleets. These were stealth ships built with stolen alien tech. They could disappear from sensors, bend light, and stay silent in deep space. No one could track them. No one knew they existed. Each ship carried a small team, no big armies, no giant weapons, just experts in sabotage, hacking, and infiltration. Commander Voss handpicked the first team, Lieutenant Marco Ren, stealth pilot, fast, fearless, with a personal grudge. Dr. Leon Soto, AI engineer, built the ship's smart systems. Sergeant Kellen Ray, combat expert, quiet but deadly. Nara Dax, ex-alien spy. Once worked for the Zorvak, now wanted revenge. They had nothing in common, except one thing. They had all lost someone on Eden 3, and now they wanted justice. Their first target: a Zorvak communication relay on the edge of alien space. It didn't look important. Just a floating station orbiting a dead moon. But it was the brain of Zorvak's network. It listened to every message across thousands of systems. It tracked ships. It controlled alerts. Without it, the Zorvak would go blind. The mission was simple: get in, shut it down, and leave no trace. The ghost ship, named Whisper One, launched in silence. No ceremony, no broadcast, just darkness and cold engines. It disappeared from Earth's orbit within minutes. No one outside Black Core even knew it existed. As the ship reached the dead moon, the crew prepared. They wore black suits with heat blockers. Even their heartbeats were dampened by tech. Not a single sound, not a single light. They drifted toward the station like shadows. Inside, Zorvak officers relaxed. No one expected humans to come this deep. They believed the message after Eden 3 had been loud enough, but they were wrong. Humans moved room by room, silent, fast. Dr. Soto hacked the main systems. Sergeant Ray planted disruptors. Lieutenant Ren disabled escape pods. Nara Dax left no witnesses. In 7 minutes, it was over. The station powered down. Its lights faded. Then, boom, it vanished in a quiet explosion. The kind that looked like an accident. No alarms were sent. No signal was received. The galaxy didn't even notice, but the Zorvak did. They knew something was wrong, and for the first time, they felt fear. Back on Earth, Commander Voss watched the operation report. She didn't smile. She simply nodded. That's one. She turned back to the galaxy map. Now for the next. Project Vengeance was working. One by one, targets would fall, no announcements, no wars, just silence and destruction. The Zorvac thought Eden 3 was the final warning, but they didn't know humans well enough. They didn't understand that when you burn our homes, kill our families, and call it mercy, you don't end us. You create something. Worse, they pushed humanity too hard. Now humanity was pushing back, not with war, but with vengeance. The stars looked the same, but something had changed. After the fall of Eden 3, Earth was silent on the outside, but inside it was preparing. People thought humanity would beg for peace. They were wrong. Humanity was not planning to forgive. They were planning something far worse. They called it Project Vengeance. The project was hidden deep under the Arctic Circle, inside a secret base known as Black Core. It didn't appear on any map. Even most government leaders didn't know it existed. Inside, the best minds of Earth were gathered. Military commanders, scientists, engineers, hackers, spies. They worked without sleep, driven by anger, loss, and one clear goal: make the Zorvac suffer. Leading the operation was Commander Raina Voss. She had lost her daughter on Eden 3. Her voice never shook, her eyes never blinked. She was calm, cold, and focused. People whispered that she hadn't cried once. She didn't have time for tears. She had work to do. Voss stood in the center of the command room, pointing at a large hologram of the galaxy. Glowing red dots showed Zorvac bases. Yellow lines marked supply routes. She looked at her team and said, "They think we're scared. Let's make them regret that." The mission was not to start a war. A war would cost more lives. It would take too long. Humanity wanted something faster, smarter, something the Zorvac wouldn't see coming. So Project Vengeance created something new: ghost fleets. These were stealth ships built with stolen alien tech. They could disappear from sensors, bend light, and stay silent in deep space. No one could track them. No one knew they existed. Each ship carried a small team, no big armies, no giant weapons, just experts in sabotage, hacking, and infiltration. Commander Voss handpicked the first team, Lieutenant Marco Ren, stealth pilot. Fast, fearless, with a personal grudge. Dr. Leon Soto, AI engineer, built the ship's smart systems. Sergeant Kellen Ray, combat expert, quiet but deadly. Nara Dax, ex-alien spy. Once worked for the Zorvac, now wanted revenge. They had nothing in common, except one thing. They had all lost someone on Eden 3, and now they wanted justice. Their first target: a Zorvac communication relay on the edge of alien space. It didn't look important. Just a floating station orbiting a dead moon. But it was the brain of Zorvac's network. It listened to every message across thousands of systems. It tracked ships. It controlled alerts. Without it, the Zorvac would go blind. The mission was simple: get in, shut it down, and leave no trace. The ghost ship, named Whisper One, launched in silence. No ceremony, no broadcast, just darkness and cold engines. It disappeared from Earth's orbit within minutes. No one outside Black Core even knew it existed. As the ship reached the dead moon, the crew prepared. They wore black suits with heat blockers. Even their heartbeats were dampened by tech. Not a single sound, not a single light. They drifted toward the station like shadows. Inside, Zorvac officers relaxed. No one expected humans to come this deep. They believed the message after Eden 3 had been loud enough, but they were wrong. Humans moved room by room, silent, fast. Dr. Soto hacked the main systems. Sergeant Ray planted disruptors. Lieutenant Wren disabled escape pods. Naradax left no witnesses. In 7 minutes, it was over. The station powered down. Its lights faded. Then, boom, it vanished in a quiet explosion. The kind that looked like an accident. No alarms were sent. No signal was received. The galaxy didn't even notice, but the Zorvac did. They knew something was wrong, and for the first time, they felt fear. Back on Earth, Commander Voss watched the operation report. She didn't smile. She simply nodded. That's one. She turned back to the galaxy map. Now for the next. Project Vengeance was working. One by one, targets would fall. No announcements. No wars. Just silence and destruction. The Zorvac thought Eden 3 was the final warning, but they didn't know humans well enough. They didn't understand that when you burn our homes, kill our families, and call it mercy, you don't end us. You create something. Worse, they pushed humanity too hard. Now humanity was pushing back, not with war, but with vengeance. The Zorvac Accord had ruled their part of the galaxy for thousands of years. They believed in power, in fear, in control. For a long time, that had worked, but something had changed. Now, small problems were appearing in their empire. Stations going dark, patrols disappearing, data missing. At first, they thought it was internal error, a glitch, a mistake. They were wrong. It was humanity. And this time, humans weren't coming with peace. They were coming like shadows. After the Eden 3 massacre, Earth did not start a full war. It started something worse, targeted destruction, one strike at a time, quiet, precise, deadly. Ghost fleets moved across space, hidden by stolen Zorvac tech. No one could track them. No one could stop them. Now it was time for the first major strike, a hit that would shake the entire Zorvac Accord. The target, Kelros Prime, a giant weapons factory orbiting a dying star. Kelros didn't just build guns. It created plasma cores, drone fleets, and long-range warheads. If it was destroyed, the Zorvac's military strength would drop by 40%. It was deep in Zorvac space, heavily guarded, thought to be untouchable. Perfect. Commander Raina Voss stood before her team in Black Core. She tapped on the hologram of Kelros. They used Eden 3 to send a message. We'll use Kelros to send one back. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned with cold fire. No warnings, no survivors. The team nodded. This time, there would be no infiltration. This time, they would strike hard. 3 ghost ships were selected. Whisper 1 with Lieutenant Marco Wren and Nara Dax. Phantom 7 loaded with cloaked drone bombs. Shade 9, a decoy ship meant to draw enemy fire. The plan was dangerous, maybe suicidal. But everyone on the team had lost someone on Eden 3. None of them planned to come back until Kelros was gone. The mission started at midnight Earth time. Ghost ships jumped through deep space, riding dark paths only few AI systems could calculate. No lights, no signals. As they approached Kelros Prime, the factory looked like a metal city floating in fire. Red light from the dying star painted everything in a hellish glow. The factory had hundreds of defense cannons, thousands of workers, dozens of Zorvac, warships orbiting it. But none of them saw what was coming. Shade 9 jumped in first. It pretended to be a damaged cargo ship. Zorvac sensors picked it up and focused fire. That's when Whisper 1 and Phantom 7 arrived. Invisible. They moved fast. Slipped past the defenses. Released drone bombs the size of footballs, each carrying enough plasma to rip through steel. The drones flew inside the factory, using stolen Zorvac codes to avoid alarms. One by one, they latched onto reactors, fuel lines, and command towers. The countdown started. 6 seconds. On the bridge of Whisper 1, Nara Dax watched the timer. Her hands didn't shake. Her voice was steady. "This is for Eden," Lieutenant Wren whispered back. Let's light their sky. 10, 9, 8. In orbit, Zorvac ships finally realized something was wrong, but it was too late. Boom! The first reactor went up like a star exploding, then the second, then the third. One by one, the bombs tore through Kelros Prime. Metal twisted, fire rained in space, screams echoed through comms, then silence. The Zorvac defense ships panicked, shooting at shadows. Shade 9 self-destructed, taking 3 warships with it. Whisper 1 vanished into a deep space jump. Mission complete. Back on Earth, Commander Voss watched the live feed of Kelros burning. Her team clapped. She didn't. She simply said, "This is just the beginning." Across the galaxy, the Zorvac Accord went on high alert. They didn't know who had done it. They didn't understand how humans could strike so deep so fast. But now they knew something for sure. Humanity was no longer afraid. And what was worse, humanity had learned how to fight like them. No mercy, no warnings, only fire. The media called it the Ghost Strike. The galaxy began whispering about human vengeance. Smaller species, once silent, started to watch Earth more closely. Some even started to hope. Because if humans could stand against the Zorvac, maybe the Empire wasn't so untouchable after all. But for humanity, this wasn't about hope. This was about pain. This was about justice. This was about making sure no one ever forgot Eden 3. The message was clear. You can kill our people. You can burn our colonies, but you can't erase our rage. You can't stop our ghosts. And now those ghosts were coming for every one of you. The galaxy was changing. After the destruction of Kelros Prime, whispers spread across star systems. Stations locked down. Border patrols increased. Zorvac leaders shouted at each other behind closed doors. They were scared. But not of Earth's armies. They were scared of something they couldn't see, the ghost fleets. No one knew how humans were attacking or where they would strike next. And worst of all, some of the smaller alien species were starting to believe in the humans. The Zorvac Accord was built on fear. Thousands of years ago, they had crushed hundreds of weaker civilizations. They didn't need loyalty, they only needed silence. But now, something was breaking. Secret messages began traveling through dark networks, encrypted files, hidden channels. Aliens from once conquered worlds started saying the same thing. If humans can fight, maybe we can too. Commander Reyna Voss received one such message deep inside Black Core. It came from a system that wasn't on any Earth map. A hidden code, a strange language. Her AI decrypted it slowly. The message was short. "We know what you did to Kelros. We want in." The team was suspicious. It could be a trap, but Commander Voss didn't ignore it. She knew that vengeance alone wasn't enough. If humanity was going to truly shake the Zorvac Accord, they would need more than ghost ships. They would need allies, even dangerous ones. She sent Whisper 1 to investigate, LT. Marco Ren, Nara Dax, and the team followed the dark signal through uncharted space. The area was full of dead satellites and broken moons. No light, no life, just silence. Then a small ship appeared on their sensors, old, rusted, alien. Its weapons were cold, but its signal was active. "Hold fire," Nara Dax said. "This is neutral ground." The team boarded the ship carefully. Inside, they met a strange group of aliens, the Dravari. Once a proud species, now they were scattered across space like dust. The Zorvac had taken their planet 2 centuries ago. Their leaders were executed. Their culture was erased. But these Dravari weren't broken. They were fighters, survivors, hackers, smugglers, spies. They had been hiding in the shadows for years, waiting for someone to strike first. And now, someone had. Earth. Their leader was a tall, sharp-eyed alien named Talon Voss. He wore a cloak made from old Zorvac banners. As a warning, as a joke. He spoke slowly, clearly. You burned Kelros. We saw. We celebrated. We have information, codes, maps, secret vaults. In exchange, we want one thing. Let us fight. Lieutenant Wren looked at Nara. She gave a small nod. They both understood. Earth wasn't just fighting for Eden 3 anymore. It was becoming something else. A symbol, a spark, a threat. Back on Earth, Commander Voss approved the alliance. The Dravari would stay hidden, provide intel, guide strikes. In return, Earth would protect them or avenge them. The new network was born. The Shadow Chain. From that moment, humanity's ghost fleets moved faster. They had better maps, more codes, access to backdoors and forgotten systems. With the help of Dravari hackers, Earth's AI could now read Zorvac messages in real time. They could hear the panic, the confusion. They could see the cracks forming in the mighty empire. But the Shadow Chain was dangerous. If the Zorvac found out, they would wipe out the Dravari, and they would know Earth wasn't acting alone anymore. So the humans worked in silence. 1 step at a time. Whisper 1 was sent on a new mission. A secret vault hidden beneath the surface of an icy moon called Veskar. The vault contained records, proof of all the Zorvac's war crimes, massacres, stolen planets, secret prisons. Talon Vos said, "You want the galaxy to turn on them? Show them the truth." The mission was deadly. The vault was deep, guarded by elite Zorvac soldiers. But the Ghost team made it inside, using the Dravari maps and stolen Zorvac armor. They didn't take everything, just enough. Enough to make the galaxy. See, the files were uploaded to deep space relays, coded and spread across neutral systems. Screens lit up. Hollow broadcasts began leaking. Planets that once feared the Zorvac now hated them. Commander Voss stood before her warboard. One system blinked red, then another and another. Not from attacks, but from riots, resistance, awakened rage. She turned to her staff. "We were fighting alone. Now we're not. The galaxy had watched humanity burn. Now it watched them rise, and something was shifting in the shadows. The Zorvac could still crush armies, but how do you stop an idea? How do you kill a fire that's already spreading? They pushed humanity too hard. And now? They weren't just fighting ghosts. They were fighting a movement, a quiet storm that was turning the galaxy against them. The Zorvac Accord was beginning to crumble. For centuries, their empire had been unchallenged. The thought of humans daring to rise against them was laughable. But now, the tide was turning. One strike had led to another. The ghost fleets were everywhere, tearing through their military networks. The Shadow Chain was working from the shadows, feeding humanity with intelligence, weapons, and hope. And now, Earth was preparing for its most dangerous strike yet. The Zorvac were unaware of how close they were to their downfall. Commander Reyna Voss stood at the front of the war room on Earth. The map in front of her was filled with red blips, the Zorvac strongholds. It was a beautiful picture of their empire, spread across the galaxy like a web. But something was wrong. The once powerful system was now full of weak spots. The cracks were widening, and the Zorvac were too busy fighting ghosts to notice. "It's time," Voss said quietly. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were hard. Time for the final blow. The target, the Zorvac capital, Vora Prime, the heart of their empire. This would be the strike that would break their will, destroy their ability to ever fight back again. But Vora Prime wasn't just another military base. It was everything. The capital was protected by layers of defenses that could obliterate any fleet that dared approach. Hundreds of warships, planet-side defense cannons, and a full fleet of elite Zorvac soldiers. No one had ever tried to break through it before, until now. The ghost fleets were ready. 3 ships, Whisper 1, Phantom 7, and Shade 9, prepared for the mission. This time, the the stakes were higher. They weren't just attacking a military target. They were taking on the heart of the Zorvak's power. They had one chance, one shot. Reyna Voss gathered her crew in the war room before they departed. "We've lost friends, we've lost families, and now we're going to lose something even bigger, the future of every living being who ever stood up to these tyrants. We're not just avenging Eden 3. We're ending this war. For good." There was silence in the room. A moment of stillness, broken only by the hum of the ship's engines. Then, Lieutenant Marco Wren spoke. "For the ghosts." His voice was strong. "For the shadow chain," Naradax added. "For Earth," Reyna Voss finished, and with that, the fleet jumped into deep space. The journey to Vora Prime wasn't easy. Every system the Ghost Fleet passed through had become a battlefield, with Zorvak patrols still trying to hunt them down. But they were ghosts. They moved like shadows, undetected. When they arrived at the outskirts of Vora Prime's space, it was as if they had entered a different world. The defenses were terrifying. A giant fleet of Zorvak warships surrounded the capital, their guns glowing with deadly energy. The space around them was filled with tension. "We're going to need a distraction," Voss said. "Phantom 7, get close to their perimeter. Draw their attention." "On it," came the response. Phantom 7 flew. First, sneaking between asteroid belts and Zorvak warships, evading detection. The Zorvak fleet moved toward them, drawn in by the decoy. The moment their attention was distracted, Whisper 1 and Shade 9 entered. The first wave of attacks was calculated. Silent. Deadly. Phantom 7 detonated its payload, causing a massive explosion. The Zorvak ships around them started to panic, sending their entire defense network into chaos. It was their chance. Whisper 1 dropped out of the shadow of a nearby moon, appearing on the Zorvak scanners for a brief second. Long enough to fire. Plasma bolts ripped through Zorvak warships, tearing apart their outer defenses. And then Shade 9 launched its drones, thousands of them, each armed with weapons strong enough to shatter even Vora Prime's outer barriers. As the battle intensified, Vora Prime's defense grid began to weaken. The Zorvak launched everything they had at the Ghost Fleet, but the humans were faster. They knew the system, thanks to the Dravari. They knew the weak points, the cracks. They slipped through them like water flowing through a broken dam. On the surface of Vora Prime, the Zorvak capital's leaders were beginning to panic. In their command center, the Supreme General of the Zorvak Accord shouted orders. "This can't be happening! All forces return fire! Do not let them reach the core!" But it was too late. Whisper 1 broke through the final line of defense and descended toward the central reactor of Vora Prime. Voss, Wren, Dax, and the rest of the team were on the ground now, moving quickly to plant their charges. The Zorvak's last hope was to stop them here, but the ghosts were relentless. Every Zorvak soldier they faced was overwhelmed. Finally, Voss reached the control center. "Time to end this," she muttered, setting the final charge. The explosion shook the planet to its core. The reactor exploded with a fury that could be felt across the entire system. Vora Prime, the heart of the Zorvak Empire, had fallen. Back in space, the Zorvak fleet scattered, broken and leaderless. Panic spread throughout their forces. They no longer had a clear command. Humanity had just shattered their empire. The galaxy fell silent. The Zorvak were no longer a threat, but as Commander Reyna Voss stood on the bridge of Whisper 1, looking out at the ruins of Vora Prime, she knew this wasn't just a victory. This was the beginning of a new era, an era of freedom. The battle for Vora Prime had been a victory, but it didn't feel like one. The Zorvak had been crushed, their empire reduced to rubble. Their capital, the heart of their power, was now nothing but ashes. The destruction was complete, and humanity had emerged victorious. Yet, Commander Reyna Voss couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. The aftermath of the battle was chaotic. Across the galaxy, there was silence at first. Then came the signals. News stations from every corner of the galaxy broadcasted the fall of Vora Prime. The news spread like wildfire. Some systems celebrated, others were too stunned to speak. But there was one thing no one could ignore. Humanity had won. The ghost fleets, once shadows of resistance, now stood tall as the new symbol of strength in the galaxy. No longer were they the underdogs. No longer were they running and hiding. They had proven that they could defeat the greatest empire the universe had ever seen. But the cost had been high. Voss stood alone on the observation deck of Whisper 1, staring at the endless void of space. Her mind replayed the events over and over. The lives lost, the countless battles, the faces of the people they'd left behind. She had led them into war. She had given the orders. She had watched as soldiers, civilians, and entire worlds burned. And now, standing among the wreckage, she wasn't sure what to feel. Tot. Marco Ren joined her, his face worn but proud. "We did it, Commander," he said quietly. Voss didn't turn to face him. She just nodded. "Yes, we did. But at what cost?" Ren didn't have an answer. Neither of them did. On Earth, the celebrations had already begun. Victory parades were being planned. The people of Earth were free at last. They had avenged their colonies. The Zorvak would no longer threaten their homes. But Reyna knew that true peace would take time. Too much time. The galaxy had been shaken to its core. Entire civilizations had been toppled. No one knew what came next. And the shadow chain, the silent force that had helped them all, was still a secret. The Dravari, and many others, had been essential to their victory. Yet they remained in the shadows, hidden away, working quietly behind the scenes. As the days passed, Earth began to rebuild, but the scars remained. The memory of the war, the lives lost in the battle for Eden III, the massacre of Kelros Prime, and the destruction of Vora Prime were still fresh in the minds of every human who had fought. Reyna Voss found herself in a new kind of war, a war for peace. It wasn't about weapons anymore. It wasn't about military strategy. It was about rebuilding trust, and even more challenging, forgiving. On the edge of human space, a small ship docked in a forgotten corner of the galaxy. It was a Dravari ship, cloaked in shadow, its hull scarred by years of survival. Talon Voss stepped out onto the dusty landing platform. His people had been silent for so long. They had watched the rise and fall of empires. They had witnessed the horrors of war and the agony of defeat. But now, he was here, standing in front of the humans who had brought down the Zorvak. "It's over," Talon said quietly to his crew. "We've won." But there was no joy in his voice. Back on Earth, the leaders of the galaxy began to gather for a summit. There were too many questions, too many uncertain futures. The war had ended, but the peace was fragile. Some systems were ready to rebuild, to join forces with Earth and the ghost fleets. Others were hesitant. Fear of the unknown still hung in the air. The Zorvak may have been defeated, but the damage they had done to the galaxy ran deep, and there were whispers in the dark. The Zorvak were just one part of something bigger. Who's next? As Reyna Voss prepared to attend the summit, she realized something. The war with the Zorvak had been the beginning of a much larger story. Humanity had crossed a line, one they couldn't uncross. They had proven their strength. They had shown the galaxy that they could fight and win. But the question was now, what would they do with their newfound power? The summit began. Leaders of various alien species and human representatives filled the grand chamber, each with their own thoughts and desires. The Zorvak were gone, but there was a new tension now. The universe had seen the might of humanity. Some feared it, others admired it, but no one could ignore it. Reyna Voss stood at the head of the table. Her eyes were weary but resolute. She had led them through the darkness. She had seen the horrors of war. And now, she had to lead them through the hard part. Rebuilding. "We are not here to rule," she began, her voice steady but firm. "We are here to build something new. Something better. We've seen what happens when empires fall. Now it's time to ensure that peace is stronger than war." But even as Reyna spoke, she couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy's true test was just beginning. The war was over. The Zorvak had fallen, but the aftermath, that would be the hardest battle of all. The summit had ended, but the questions remained. The galaxy was in flux. Humanity had won the war, but the price had been steep. The ruins of the Zorvak Empire still smoldered in the void of space, a reminder of what had been lost. But the question now was not about what had been destroyed, but what would be built in its place. Reyna Voss stood before a large window on the command deck of Whisper 1. The stars stretched endlessly before her, cold and silent. Yet there was a warmth in her chest, a spark of hope. The human race had proved that they could survive, that they could fight, and that they could win. But the next step was not as clear. Across the galaxy, Earth had begun its long process of rebuilding. Cities rose from the ashes, their skylines a mix of human ingenuity and the alien technologies they had scavenged during the war. New alliances were forming. Old enemies were coming to the table, some ready to negotiate, others still wary. But Reyna knew that this wasn't just about rebuilding cities or ships. This was about rebuilding trust, rebuilding the soul of humanity. It wasn't enough to win the war. They had to win the peace. The human leaders, including Voss, had gathered once again, this time not to discuss tactics or military strategies, but to discuss the future. There were murmurs in the room, quiet voices filled with uncertainty. "What happens now?" one leader asked, his voice trembling slightly. "What kind of galaxy are we going to build?" Reyna Voss looked around the room, meeting the eyes of the leaders of other species who had stood with humanity in the war, and those who had once been their enemies. "We will build a galaxy where everyone has a voice," she said, her voice strong, though still carrying the weight of the past. "A galaxy where we work together, not as conquerors, but as equals. The time for empires is over." The room fell silent. Some of the leaders nodded, others looked doubtful. But Reyna could see the glimmer of hope in their eyes. They had all been through too much to turn back now. As the leaders discussed the future, Reyna found herself standing outside the room, gazing up at the stars once again. The galaxy had changed, and so had she. The war had taken its toll, but it had also given her a clarity she hadn't had before. The universe was vast, but so was humanity's potential. Back on Earth, the people celebrated, but not with the loud, boisterous joy of previous victories. It was a quieter celebration, one filled with reflection, remembrance, and a sense of renewal. They had survived. They had lost so much, but they had come out stronger. And as the years passed, the children of Eden 3, the colony destroyed by the Zorvak, were remembered. Monuments were built in their honor, and their story became a symbol of perseverance. Humanity would never forget the past, but they would move forward, together. But even as the galaxy began to heal, a shadow still lingered in the corners of the universe. Reyna received a message, a single transmission, encoded with an alien language she had never seen before. It was a warning. "The Zorvak were just one part of a greater machine," the message read. "You have won this battle, but the war is far from over." Reyna Voss stared at the message, her heart racing. The Zorvak may have fallen, but there were whispers of something bigger, something darker, hidden in the far reaches of space. The galaxy was not done with its trials. In the depths of space, hidden among the stars, a new force was beginning to stir. They had watched the fall of the Zorvak with quiet interest. Their plans had always been long-term. They had no intention of rushing. Now, they were ready. But that was a story for another time. As Reyna stood on the bridge of Whisper 1, gazing at the galaxy before her, she realized that the war was not truly over. The galaxy would always face new threats, new challenges. But humanity had learned something powerful. They would never be helpless again. They had fought for survival. They had fought for vengeance. And now, they would fight for a future. Reyna looked at the stars one last time, her gaze steady and unwavering. There was still much to do, and the path ahead was uncertain. But there was one thing she knew for sure. Humanity had not just survived. They had evolved, and they were ready for whatever came next.